is iRacing.
The natural bowl of the Hungaroring acts as an apt metaphor for this circuit and its lack of overtaking chances. You and your competitors are going to be stuck together and maybe a bit cramped, so better get comfy as we get ready to watch round 7 of the Porsche Owners Club Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Alex Goldschmidt. Behind the scenes is our director, Jano Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. This might be Hungary's most famous racetrack, but in case you're new to it, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to the Hungaroring. Situated just northeast of Budapest, this Grand Prix circuit has racked up a stunning history in just a little more than 30 years of existence. Its biggest claim to fame was holding the first Formula One race inside the Iron Curtain at a time when the Cold War was at its peak. But most fans don't associate this 2.7-mile or 4.38-kilometer track with politics. No, its 14 turns make it tight and twisty with a reputation for few places to overtake. For a long time, it was renowned for processional races in which qualifying is of the utmost importance. But the past couple decades have seen a litany of utterly wild and unpredictable races that greatly overshadow the single-file events of before. The majority of passing takes place into Turn 1, while some battles do carry on into Turn 2. But be careful about how greedy you get, because the steep drop in elevation makes it easy to go wide. Other than that, Turn 12 is often the only other realistic place to sneak by your opponent. Perhaps the scariest and trickiest of the corners is 4, which presents a blind and crooked entry into a high-speed flick. Though modern times have seen a paved runoff added to it to make it safer, that's considered out of bounds, and drivers will find themselves being told to give back time if they abuse the exit. Built with fans in mind, the track sits in a natural bowl, allowing great views from most sides of the venue. It's easy to see why it's become a fan favorite on the F1 calendar, and there's little doubt it'll continue to see lots of racing for years to come. Well, this twisty place is going to be quite difficult, and no, we are not at the Nürburgring. We're at the Hungaroring here for round 7. Alex?
Yeah, the first ever circuit that was pioneered courtesy of a certain Mr. Bernie Eccleston. Yeah, as you said, Joe, rightly. Minimal places for overtaking, plenty of elevation changes as well, especially at the top left corner of the circuit. You know, that turn 5 is going to really catch people out, but it's mainly coming out of turn 14, and the long start-finish stretch down to T1 is probably going to be the best opportunity, maybe into turn 2 if you can push the envelope. But it could be, you know, people might say, yeah, racing at procession, it might be a procession here at the Hungaroring, but this 2.72 mile circuit opened back in March of 1986 is going to prove a challenge for everybody.
Without a doubt, and the track will certainly test the drivers, but sometimes you can get some really good races despite it being so hard to pass, probably because it's so hard to pass. Now, before we get to the racing itself, we want to take a quick moment to mention our sponsors. Or actually, we're going to standings, it looks like, as we're checking out Michael Bolton up on the top. Dylan Scott has dropped down to second because of Michael's recent win in a bit of a bad race back in Adelaide for Dylan. BJ Fulton still sitting there in third. Now, Blake Sams has some making up to do, as he currently is in the 4th spot, about 18 points back. He can make up about 10 points if he wants to get into the top 3. And Dustin Heindel, who seems to be pretty quick this season, just doesn't have the results to show it. Same thing you could say for Jad Duncan, 32 points back from the lead. From there, it gets pretty tight as the points get smaller between the finishing positions. So Leclerc, Marciniak, Morales, and Alessandrini not split by much amongst the top 10. What about our race details here, Alex?
Well, this officially marks round 7 out of 13, which brings us to the halfway point of this series. It's a 40-minute race, which means that the drivers will have to do a pit stop, and we are using the current 992.2 Porsche 911 Cup car. No GT3 anymore. Rolling start, so Indianapolis-style start 2x2, and every driver has 2 cars at their disposal here if they make it a bit of a habit of hitting the barriers.
Thankfully, they're relatively far away in a few spots, but it does tighten up on the back half of the course. Now we have a chance to mention our sponsors because, first of all, we're sponsored by Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun Wealth, your retirement wingman. Contact them today for a complimentary financial review at TopGunWM.com. That's TopGunWM.com. So as we take a look at where things sit right now, one thing that strikes me is that Dylan Scott has made it a serious competition at the front between himself and Jad Duncan. Look at that, 13 thousandths of a second, and we've just hit the checkered flag. So he is on his final flying lap. Can he make up that little bit of time and take the pole away?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been tight when you've got the likes of Jad Duncan and Dylan Scott out there battling it out for pole position. Michael Bolton about 0.17 off, and then it is looking that is not what you want to do out of turn 14. Dylan has just absolutely thrown that one away, just a bit too much over rotation, turning a bit tight, went on the power a bit too early, and then around she span there, Joe.
Which is a bit of a shame. That was the final corner, so if he could have kept it clean, we'd be able to have seen what kind of time he was going to have. And it did look like he should have been on the pace from what I could tell on the sectors, but it's not going to give us any information, at least this time around. Maybe the race will illuminate it. BJ Fulton, who currently sits in 5th, is also on his last lap, as long as he keeps it within the track limits around here. As we heard Alex mention, a lot of paved runoff at this circuit. It can be easy to rack up those incident points.
That's going to be the key point here, Joe, and it's got to be smooth and consistent, as you see coming through the final corner. BJ Fulton sitting down in 5th position on a 1:45.3, just goes across the line 3 tenths down. I mean, it can be a struggle. You rightly said about the track limits, and drivers in some respect will try to mitigate that, but it's going to be even more difficult when you got our field going into turn 1 at a big rate of speed here on this 40-minute race. We're halfway through this particular season of the Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League, and there's still plenty more circuits to go. But this one, as we see by the helicopter shot here, a lot of greenery, which might be a bit distracting to the eye, but they've got to keep their eyes on the tarmac tonight.
Certainly. And as you can see on the timing tower, it is pretty close amongst the top 5. It spreads out a little farther down the field, but 5th place is still only 0.237 of a second behind Jad Duncan. That could be a fun one to watch with them so closely matched here in this race, and could mean those pit stops might wind up being critical. Everybody has now completed their hot lap, so we wait for the clock to hit 0. We'll transfer over to our starting grid for today. Only 12 cars, but like we said, it looks like the tight nature of their pace should make it fun. So here you see Jad Duncan on the pole, has beat Dylan Scott by a tiny margin. Michael Bolton not far behind them as well. We'll start from 3rd. Blake Sams will be P4, and it will be BJ Fulton in 5th. He'll be flanked by Mark Rondeau in P6. Dustin Heindel starts 7th today. Lyden Rondeau will be in P8, and Christopher Marciniak 9th. Mark Morales rounds out your top 10. Then it is Larry Haas starting in 11th, and John Mohmeyer winding up the field, starting from 12th today. I think we're going to have to watch those pit stops a little bit closer than usual, Alex. The reputation of this track really makes that track position so important.
Yeah, and that's going to be crucial whether an undercut or an overcut is actually going to work here at the Hungaroring. And with the fact that we could see a lot more mistakes tonight here at this circuit, that could be the telling point, because you might be one of the early ones to pit, but as we've seen in qualifying, if you go over that limit of adhesion and you spin that car around, well, there's your undercut strategy straight down the drain, and it's going to be like water under the bridge. You're going to forget about that and think, well, how can I catch that up? And here at the Hungaroring, it never is the case. So, like you say, it's going to be interesting to see how that works. But nevertheless, can we see something exciting happen here at the Hungaroring? Because, yeah, there's not many places to overtake, but it doesn't detract from the fact we could have a very, very good race. I mean, you remember when we did Miami late last year for the one-off just before Christmas, Joe? People were a bit reserved about it, but here we are at the Hungaroring. I think we could have a little bit of a belter on our hands, if I'm honest.
I think so too. Like I keep saying, the qualifying times are so tight together that it bodes well, and we could see some fantastic racing. But Chad Duncan, for the time being, will have control in that yellow number 83. Let's see what happens once they take the green flag, which is now out, and they accelerate away. It's a long run to this first corner, and it looks like Dylan Scott has a pretty good jump on things, but he's going to have to go the long way around turn one if he can manage to hold the grip as they go 3 wide behind him for 5th place. No, it doesn't look like Dylan Scott has got it, and Jag will hold on to the lead for the time being.
I have to say, nice dive up the inside of turn 1 by Leiden Rondo, getting the jump on BJ Fulton, who might lose out to Mark Rondo coming through here at turn 2. Down the hill we go for the first time, and there we see Dustin Heindel, who's dropped a position, but there's someone hard and into the barriers, and Leiden Rondo, well, I said about turn 1, he hasn't made it through turn 4 yet, and he's in the pits.
Yeah, it was a hard hit into the wall. It is known for being slippery out of turn 3 there. Just did not quite work out. A little bit of a look briefly from Michael Bolton. And thought maybe he was going to try and get tricky into the chicane on this first lap. Surprised Dylan Scott, but he decided better of it. There's still a lot of racing left to go. So it's nose to tail in these early stages. I think we're getting a little bit of a break behind BJ Fulton there in 5th. Mark Rondeau needs to make up about 1.5 seconds to catch.
Yeah, and even with Leiden, who is the youngest driver on our grid, 14 years of age, and obviously related to Mark, so Mark tried to get through on BJ quite early in the first part of this lap as we ride on board with our resident Aussie, as he is going to try. You can just see how they're having to basically white line it, folks, whereby they have to stay on the racing line. Dylan Scott this time waits until the last moment possible, about 3/4 of a way through the corner at turn 14, but it loses them a little bit of time as they come across the line, and we start lap 2. Dylan Scott shows his nose to Chad Duncan, who's decided to adopt the student driver livery on the 83. But again, the top 5 starting to break away now, so BJ Fulton finds himself nearly 1.9 seconds in front of Mark Rondo, who has got our resident cookie monster Dustin Heindel just behind him. So the Chips Ahoy machine try and chase down the 11 for P6, but they are losing time because in clear air, Chad Duncan knows that it's going to be difficult for the 4 behind him to pass.
It will, and he's certainly got those googly eyes filling up those mirrors at the moment. Rondo's doing a good job withstanding the early pressure. We also saw, well, we didn't quite see it on screen, but Bolton seemed to have a bad exit. He was close to being overtaken by Sams for that 3rd spot. He holds him at bay for now. John Momeyer, he is up 2 spots from where he began. He's working on Chris Marciniak. This is the battle for 9th, but he's got to stay patient along these latter half of the track set of corners that is just back and forth constant with no real heavy braking zones here, Alex.
Yeah, it is kind of a bit of a pendulum swing. Sometimes you find yourself gaining time under braking, and then coming out of the corner, you might lose a little bit of traction. Even though these cars the current, well, the new for 2026 generation 992.2 Cup cars. They have ABS and traction control, and Dylan Scott taking an unusual line there through turn number 14 to try and carry the momentum through the corner on exit, and now he's in the slipstream, he's in the tow. He's just set the fastest lap of the race as we go on to lap 3 at 1:45.777, and you can just see he was looking a little bit more racy going into turn 1. He's trying the over-under strategy here, trying to do the crossover point, but in the meantime, Chad Duncan is just absolutely parking the car where he needs to. There is room there, but Dylan Scott decides discretion is the better part of valor. Wait for his opportunity, but he doesn't get the hammer down as quick as Chad Duncan, who's really seems to have got things nailed in terms of how compliant the car is over the bumps.
You can see how early Chad turned into that corner. He knew that Dylan was there trying to challenge him. In fact, he was quite good off of turn 4, was the 08. Can't do anything with it unless he gets aggressive coming into the chicane. No, he backs out before they go through the right left, and still his opportunity has been squandered. He's still got 35 minutes left to go. If he stays this close for the entire race, surely there will be other chances.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan looked really close on the braking going through into that turn 5 just off of the kink at 4, but now they're coming down through turn 11, now into turn 12 coming up very shortly, and it's a 90-degree right-hander. Both drivers at the sharp end. Look, you can just see the run that Dylan carries through turn number 12, and he's right on the rear bumper of Chad going through into turn 13. Can the Australian once again try and use that unusual line? Now it's losing him time here, but then he's able to tighten up very close to the wall coming out of turn number 14, and now Chad is trying to move the car to a point where Dylan can't get through at this minute, but now he's testing the limits again. And even though we're 5.5 minutes in, well, Blake Sam's battling away with Michael Bolton for P3, as you can... Oh, now, is there a little bit of a run here from Dylan Scott? He's trying everything in the playbook at the moment, and it's still a case of learning where he's finding the grip. And trying unusual lines, you might think, well, that's you're better off doing that in the wet. Well, here at the Hungaroring, a little bit of creativity does go a long way.
The thing that I think is most creative here is that Dylan Scott is all over the show. In fact, makes almost a little bit of contact with Chad Duncan coming through turn 5 that time, but has to give it up once again. I was going to say, he's got to be making Chad at least a little bit nervous at times, because not only is he getting this close, oh, he got too close, and now he's into the wall. That is not the line you want. Does he have any damage off of that? Because it's too early for a pit stop at this stage. Bolton moves up to second. Blake Sams will move into third.
I think he's got potential damage on the left front, Joe. That took a hard hit on the left front fender, so that could be steering, maybe upright damage on the 08. So that's going to really hurt him. Yeah, I think that car has got a little bit of possible damage on the left front fender. Whether that's done anything, yeah, you can see he's not as confident out of the corners now, and that is going to allow BJ Fulton probably to get past him. But if Dylan decides to keep on running with it, well, he might be hemorrhaging a lot of time, because that cost him big style going into turn 4, as we see the battle between Dustin Heindel in 7th challenging Mark Rondeau into turn number 1. Number 117 looks to the inside, but again, you've really got to be alongside somebody going into that first corner. You can't just think, oh yeah, the slipstream's coming, yep. No, it's not. You've got to be right on the rear bumper of the car in front to make the move stick.
It's pretty steeply downhill into that corner too, so that makes it harder to outbrake without overshooting it on top of things. And Heindel, because of that, looks like he's dropped back a little bit. Maybe he'll regroup for a bit later. Another aggressive move. Behind them, you can kind of see that's Morales and Marciniak also for 8th that are somewhat close, just not really battling at this stage. Separated by somewhere in the realm of about 0.8 of a second. And that is, I think, one of the things that we'll probably see a lot. They're not F1 cars, Alex, but they do give off a bit of a wake. It can be tough to race close in these cars.
Yeah, looks like the damage might be superficial for Dylan because I think he might have only just gotten away with a little bit of superficial damage. Because if that car again gone in any hotter, then that would have been probably game over and 3 wheels on the wagon. He just did a 36.9 on the first sector, matching everyone in the top 3. And he's just gone quick. He's just equaled Chad Duncan on his middle sector on a 41.517. So I think that damage might be superficial for Dylan Scott, but that has cost him big time because of the fact he was 3.3 seconds slower than Michael Bolton on the previous tour because of that incident. Oh, and we got a spinner in the back. Mark Rondeau.
Oh, and he gets it back across just in time as John Momeyer about runs into him. Got to be careful about those rejoins. This will move Rondeau down to 10th. Dustin Heindel now gets that 6th place without really much of a fight.
Yeah, I think it was just trying to hit the loud pedal a little bit too early coming out of that final corner. Now we see that the top 3, Duncan, Bolton and Sams, covered by about 1.1 seconds. And the thing is, Dylan Scott will probably be liking this a little bit more because now he's got some clear air. Now he can exploit the performance of the 992.2 Cup car here, Joe. But as he gets closer and closer, looking at the opening sector, well, he was actually the 2nd quickest in that sector behind Michael Bolton, who was the fastest with the 36.874. Dylan Scott, 36.894. Chad Duncan, being the person at the front of the train, well, he's got no one to play with at the minute in front of him, if someone does try to overtake him, that is. And he's just done a 41.6 in the middle sector. Dylan Scott's flying now. He's dusted himself off, picked himself back up, and he's just done a 41.4 flat in sector 2. So he is closing them in.
Impressive stuff. Also, a look for a brief moment like Bolton was a bit quicker than Duncan as he had caught him up. They had fell off significantly there at the end of the lap. Sam's still in there in 3rd. Can't even see Dylan Scott, although they might be seeing him soon. There he is now in our picture. He just set the fastest lap of the race. Mark Morales, the latest, it looks like, is at the final turn again. That's the 3rd car in this broadcast we've seen spin out of the final turn. I did not expect that was going to be a trouble zone.
On Momeyer, the first person I think we've seen all race in the opening 11 minutes or so that's just made a move into turn 1 and got through on Chris Marciniak. So John doing a really, really good job in the number 6 car. And that means he is the hardest charger so far. He's up 5 spots from when we went green, Joe, 11.5 minutes ago. But it's closing up between the top 4. And this is where things could be on a bit of a precipice. 1.8 seconds covers the top 4 drivers, and now they're going to be 3 in a line. And Chad Duncan, because he's got that due diligence of being the race leader, he knows where to park the car as the track will evolve as they roar around it, and he knows where to park the car. He can go, right, I can dictate the pace of this race, and everyone's got to follow the leader.
Hopping on board with Blake Sams now, sitting in 3rd. He's going to see BJ Fulton in his rear view mirror, most likely. And probably, or excuse me, Dylan Scott, rather, in his rear view mirror, and is probably going to be thinking, I got to watch out, play a little bit of a rear guard, because he'll know that Dylan is very, very quick. But at the same time, look at how close he is. He wants that slipstream. He wants to attack on Michael Bolton. It's just not going to happen this time coming down into turn 1 as they're too far spread apart. Who is going to blink first in this group to take the pit stop? Because we're now past a quarter of the way into this race. Once they hit the halfway point, they could maybe start thinking about trying to do something different. And it looks like Marciniak is going to be the one in that case, as he has come down pit lane.
Mark Rondeau's had a little bit of a spin again, going through out of turn 13 this time. So I think Chris just deciding, you know what, let's just roll the dice. And let's see if I get Snake Eyes or lucky number 7. You never know what might be the case. Mark Rondeau also decides to dive into pit road. Good news about Lyder Rondeau, folks. He is back out on track. and is now making his way through sector 2 at the minute. But there we go, all 4 cars in a line right about now, and it's the second that covers them, from Chad Duncan to Michael Bolton, Blake Sams in P3. And this is where the pendulum swing might occur, because Dylan Scott, I think now of what happened earlier on, he's got to throw a little bit more patience into what he does over the next 26 and a quarter minutes until we hit the checkered. You can see like the damage on the rear of the left fender arch on that 08 Porsche, so it's not caused any problems with the steering. I would imagine that there might be a little bit of left hand down, and Dylan Scott decides, right, I'm going to follow the lead of what Chris Marciniak and Mark Rondeau just decided to do. I'm going to play the aggressive nature of the pit stop, and that is just before the 15-minute mark has elapsed.
And I wondered if he was going to try this, because his fastest lap was, I think, about 3 or 4 tenths quicker than anybody else's fastest lap out there. So the speed is there. He just has no place to take it now that he had caught that group. So he's going to try and pull the alternate strategy. Look at how tight it is between Sams and Bolton, but he falls off on the exit of turn 2 and loses a ton of time. Remember, we saw that that Dylan Scott had his incident when he got right up behind Chad Duncan as well. I wonder if the car just loses a lot of its stability if you get too close to that rear wing.
Yeah, and I think also there's another strategy call that Dylan might have played here, because he still had 2 cars at his disposal, so he might have decided, right, let's use one of the spare cars now, get the car back up to full 100%, as you could see the damper rebound on the left side of Michael Bolton, 2 wheels in the air as he bumped over the curbs. So you can just see how hard, folks, that these guys are not hanging around, they're pushing. But the thing is that if you push too hard, Dylan Scott got bitten by the barriers just a few laps ago, and now he's decided, well, he's rejoined in 7th. His total pit stop time was a 26.4, just under 8.1 seconds on his marks in the pit lane. So is that going to be enough for him? I mean, that means that John Momaya now up into P6, but he's got Dylan Scott breathing down his rear centre exhaust tailpipes, and John knows that his race is probably not going to be against Dylan. But Dylan decides, okay, let's see if we can make a gap. There we go. Through for P6 goes the Australian. And so let's see how much he can make of this before our drivers in 1st, 2nd and 3rd decide to go for their pit stop here at the Hungaroring for round 7 out of 13.
Well, none of the 3 blinked this time. They all stayed out. That was not ideal for Dylan, having to try and make that overtake. No doubt he lost a little bit of time. We won't know for sure because this is an out lap, but now we have to watch the remaining laps before these 3 on screen now will make their pit stop, because I think that will start to give us a picture of whether or not this strategy will work for Dylan. Chad Duncan, Michael Bolton, Blake Sams, last lap, all roughly 1:45.4 or 45.3. That's their range currently.
Yeah, and Dylan Scott's last lap was, well, on pit lane, with pit lane exit, 2 minute 8.1. So the next lap will give us a bit of a bankable idea on how hard Dylan will be pushing. But as you rightly said, having to get through on John Momaya, you know, that has cost him probably a couple, maybe 3 tenths of a second just to get through. And there you see BJ Fulton, he is way back, 4.5 seconds at some cases around the circuit. But yeah, I think it's just a case of playing the waiting game, but they have got to think about who they've got in front of them. Lydon Rondeau in the number 8. And this is where this could change the dynamic of this race, because Lydon just running his own race at the moment after that early pit stop that put him in the pit lane for over 2.5 minutes after the incident he had on lap 1. So, as they say, once bitten, twice shy. But the top 3 are closing in on him, and it won't be long before they have to make the decision. As we ride on board with Blake Sams, heading through in towards turn 2, and it's down the hill. And it's just going to be that, you know, you wait now on the power, through into 3. And this is one of the long stretches of tarmac. The drivers really get to exploit the 4-litre naturally aspirated flat 6 boxer engine, producing around about 510 brake horsepower into turn 5. And you can just see how close Blake is getting to the apex of that. And then the chicane here at 6 and 7. You've got to have commitment. It's a bit like Variante Alta, of all places, in Imola. So again, it's a chicane that you've got to be very committed on. You can't make any mistakes around there, and you can see the amount of steering input that Blake is having. It's progressive. It's not knee-jerk where you're going in like, oh, I've got to do this, and you're overcompensating through the lefts and the rights. You've got to be very smooth around here.
So I took a look at Scott's most recent lap, 45.6, and Duncan, Bolton, Sams are all 45.6 or 45.5. So he's not really making up time. Although Chad Duncan, our leader, has just lost a chunk of time. He spins out of the penultimate corner. He'll even go behind BJ Fulton, and he decides might as well pit now. But he might actually wind up behind Dylan Scott because of that mistake.
Yeah, and that was coming through turn number 13 of all places. So, yeah, that's really, really hurt his run badly. I mean, he was leading up until that point on lap 13, but now it becomes the battle between Michael Bolton and Blake Sams, and I wonder how much this is going to hurt Chad Duncan by, well, even with coming into the pit lane, it would have been normally like a 1:48, so I think that cost him about 5 seconds. It was a recorded lap because you cross the start-finish stretch and the stripe on the pit lane entry when you're rumbling down to your pit box. So he was done a 1:53.7. Mark Morales has just had a mechanical black flag and is just towed to the pit. So it looks like the 99 has hit further trouble. Big wobble by Blake Sams coming out of turn 7. That chicane, and he's now lost it.
Wow, number of drivers making errors out there. They'll start to lose a few positions as BJ Fulton able to get by, goes the long way around. And they're going to go side by side coming up to turn 11. Blake Sams will retain that second place. Michael Bolton carries on. He's got an excellent opportunity to steal this win. I can report that Duncan came out about 3.2 seconds behind Dylan Scott, so that did cost him.
About 5 or 6 seconds after that spin through turn number 13 as Leiden Rondeau calmly keeps out of the way. So yeah, Michael Bolton now 5.7 up the 5.8 seconds up the road, and that gap is climbing as Leiden Rondeau comes in for what will be his only pit stop with just over 18.5 minutes to go. And Dylan Scott at the minute is 24.8 seconds behind race leader Michael Bolton. Now the thing is that we're seeing pit stops anywhere between, well, Chad Duncan had a quicker pit stop. He fueled for less, 7.5 seconds, but a total pit stop time of just under 25.5 seconds. So Dylan needs to start pushing a little bit harder, but not to the point where he goes over the limit of adhesion. His last lap was a 1:45.4, and that was 0.3 quicker than Bolton, 0.3 quicker than Fulton, and also with Blake Sams' spin, which put him on a 51.2. So maybe Dylan Scott's decision, after hitting the barriers, getting in, getting that fuel in the car, and now start to go for that undercut strategy, this might play into his hands, but it depends on when Bolton, Sams and Fulton, they decide to pit. And again, onto the AstroTurf, you can see the left rear wanting to break traction on the back end of the number 4 there for Blake Sams. And look, I don't think he's not comfortable, and the confidence seems to be slipping away a little bit just by the way of how Fulton is very calm and composed through the corners. Sams feels like he's fighting against a recurring nightmare with the number 4 car.
It has not been in good shape, and he is going to take this opportunity to pit in now, so that frees up Fulton somewhat. They don't traditionally change tires in this series. It's just too short of a race to really merit that, but regardless, I imagine Blake will be happy. Will get a chance to cool down during this pit stop, and maybe that'll help him out. I think the big question is what you were talking about. Dylan Scott's lap time versus Michael Bolton's. Bolton ran a 45.4 last time by. Dylan Scott crosses the line now, and it is a 45.5. So he's still only had that one lap that we've seen that was significantly faster. And there we see coming back onto the track, Jad Duncan has been able to recover enough to stay ahead of Blake Sams, but we know Sams had his own spin out there. It's been a case of who makes the fewest errors today almost.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that Blake Sams has ended up behind Jad Duncan, well, he had a 26.2 second pit stop, 8.3 seconds worth of fuel went in, and that cost him time. Jad Duncan has been the driver that has been a little bit braver on the fuel strat here, Joe. 7.5 seconds worth of fuel being put in whilst the car was stationary in pit road. So this will help Jad in the greater scheme of things. But still, Dylan will be looking at that relative that he's got between himself and Michael Bolton, who is now leading in the 127. Bearing in mind of how things have gone so far, you know, Michael did win last time out when we were on the streets of Adelaide, but since, you know, before then he's had 3 third place finishes at rounds 1, 4 and 5, and BJ Fulton has been Mr. Consistency apart from the no-show that we had at round 5 itself, where he wasn't with us, but you know, he's had 3 second places, two third place finishes, so he has been Mr. Consistency, and that's why it's kept him so close to Michael in the standings. Whereas Dylan, he's had a 5th place finish, then he had a 2nd. Round 3 he wasn't with us, but then he had 2 back-to-back wins before an absolute tragedy at Adelaide last time out, where he finished P6.
And I think that is one of the big factors in a lot of this, is keeping that consistency, because the drivers who have been a little bit quicker have kind of had their on and off days. So we check out with Dustin Heindel now in 3rd. He's being caught up by Dylan Scott, about 3 seconds between them. There you see him in the background there, that black and white car. That is the 08 trying to chase down the Cookie Monster. Last lap, 2/10 quicker, Dylan Scott over Michael Bolton. He is continuing every so many laps to find just that little bit more over Bolton. It's still a question of if it's going to be enough once we see him make his pit stop, which frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Michael pitted in this time. I think we're getting close to the end of that pit window.
Yeah, and the thing is that it will be very, very close on where Michael comes out in front of Dylan. If there's a mistake made in that pit stop, then that might give Dylan the opportunity to actually end up being in the race lead through an undercut strategy, as he came in very, very early. I mean, you know, he's only been out for 6 laps so far, so he pitted on lap 10. We're on lap 16 at the moment. Looks like Michael Bolton has carried on. BJ Fulton has stayed out, so has Dustin Heindel. We've only got 13 minutes left of the race until the checkered. Air temp 66 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Mostly cloudy, but the track is still bone dry here, so that's 19 degrees centigrade air, 25 degrees centigrade track. And another quick lap. Dustin Heindel just did a 48.1. Dylan Scott, well, he's been consistently running in the 45s for the majority of the race, a 45.8. The only person quicker out of the top 3 in front of him is our race leader, Michael Bolton, who just did a mid 45.7.
You could call it a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You remember, he made up 2/10. Well, he lost 1/10 that time by. He's going to have to hustle, or else I don't think it's going to be enough. Looks like John Momeyer is the latest to come into pit lane. He is going to emerge somewhere around 8th or 9th, it looks like, once he is out and past the pit exit cones. Yeah, he just fell to 9th as Chris Marciniak manages to sneak by. Both of them have finished their pit stops. They should get a position from Larry Haas, who still needs to make his in this race. Other than Larry, Heindel, Fulton, Bolton, the only ones we're waiting on. Michael Bolton just went past the pit entry now, I can tell you. So he's not pitting this time. This is Haas trying to see if he could make a pass, I think, on a lapped car in front of him. So that's not for position.
Yeah, we're really getting down into the bottom of the ninth when it comes to the top three and when they decide to pit. And here comes Dustin Heindl. He's the first to blink. There's a little bit of damage to the front bumper of the 117. So this will be a good opportunity for Dustin maybe to hit the reset switch, so to speak, and get that car up to full strength. But now the interesting thing is that I'm going to keep an eye on Dustin Heindl's pit time, because this will give us a precedent on how much time it is going to take for both Michael Bolton and BJ Fulton to pit, considering the fact they've got less fuel to put in. But Dustin Heindl, 8.7. Oh, right, that is a slow pit stop for the 4 out of the 6 in the top 6 of the race. That was a 27.5. And he was stationary for 8.7 seconds. Dylan Scott at the moment here, Joe, is only 24.7 seconds behind our race leader now, Michael Bolton. So the pit stops for Bolton and Fulton are going to be very, very crucial, because we'll be into the final quarter of the race with just under 10 minutes to go when Michael Bolton makes his way towards the pit lane entry.
Yeah, he was another 10th faster around that last time. Does he go in this time? Yes, he does. Pit entry for the 127. He definitely attacks it. Look at him really swing it around that pit entry, and then down to the cones to the pit speed limit. BJ Fulton stays out, though. Dylan Scott will obviously stay out since he's already had his pit stop. We wait for Michael to find his pit stall as he has to go well down to the third one, and it looks like he hit his marks nicely. BJ will now inherit the lead. Dylan is coming out of the final corner. This is what we've been wanting to watch. Scott is done. Bolton is done. Scott is coming, but he's not there. The difference is about 2.5 seconds.
Now, this is not the first time that we've seen BJ Fulton provide us with a fuel-saving masterclass. And considering the fact that that was actually not a bad pit stop, Michael Bolton actually was 1 second quicker overall from pit lane entry to pit lane exit. And he put about 0.8 of a second less fuel in the car as well, more to the point. Because I think that had Dylan, he would have lost a couple of seconds by using one of the spare cars if he needed to use it, Joe. And that's quite crucial here, because if he hadn't had that hit with the barriers, then it could have been a different story altogether. They might be either with or past Michael Bolton. So I don't think he used the spare car. I think he's just carried on, and I'm going to be interested to find out, if we get a chance to speak to him post-race, of how badly his steering was affected after that hit on the left front fender.
Yeah, I can look at my timing and scoring here. I can confirm he did take the spare car. Now, in iRacing, the spare car actually doesn't take any time up. It's if it does, it's usually like 0.1 of a second or something like that. So it's something that shouldn't add to your time. BJ Fulton, though, is now in, as Larry Haas is our first to get a black flag for incident limits. That's going to set him backwards. And I'm pretty sure that BJ Fulton will be out behind Michael Bolton. That's not really the battle. It's more of where he winds up in regards to Chad Duncan and Blake Sams. There is Michael Bolton now inheriting the lead up to the top. Dylan Scott has cut it down to about 1.3 seconds. He's trying to chase him down. There is BJ returning, and he'll be out in, it looks to be, 5th.
Okay. So looks like the fuel stops in some respects have kind of dictated how the race has played out, but still and that was Mark. Now that is Mark Morales, who's gone for his 3rd spin. Now he did have an incident, so he would have hit the barriers or gone off track somewhere earlier on, enough to cause a mechanical black flag. So I think it's just a case of, Dylan has had to also, I think, if I remember correctly, he had to make avoidance, didn't he, for someone spinning earlier on?
I think that was Mark. No, that was right just now. coming through turn 2. So, yeah, that spin from Mark Morales has slowed him down. Remember, it was about 1.3 seconds. If you look at the gap now, it's up to 1.8.
Yeah, that's going to be that's very, very crucial, because that did lose. I mean, Dylan then ended up doing a high 45.5 on that particular occasion, Joe. So he's lost a bit of time, but that's probably put it well out of reach, because the thing is, Michael Bolton pitted on lap 18, whereas Dylan has been going for now is on his 11th lap of his second half of the race. As we've got 6 minutes to go, we're on to lap 21. So bearing in mind we've got 6 minutes, that is probably going to give us another maybe 4 laps of racing, including this one to go.
That sounds about right to me. And yeah, I'm looking at the last lap times, 0.5 of a second slower for Dylan Scott. So him having to go around that spinning car was costly. Now Mark Rondeau is getting a black flag, so he's had too many adventures on this track. He'll have to go serve that one. He'll get so much time, and if they don't serve it by the end of the race, then they will get a time penalty added on automatically by iRacing. Now, you only have 4 laps to serve, so for Mark Rondeau, it's kind of nip and tuck whether or not he could try and run it to the end on that. I certainly wouldn't push my limit as we watch Michael Bolton try to go win number 2 this season, and he's got to just make a couple more laps and hold off a charging Dylan Scott, who's already cut it down once again to about 1.5, 1.4 seconds. Dylan is picking up the pace.
Yeah, he's only gone fractionally quicker in that opening sector, and yeah, well, he's taken nearly 0.3 out of Michael in the middle sector. A 41.45 plays a 41.73. So Bolton. So we've got a replay now coming up. So this is going to be when we saw Dylan having to make avoidance. Now this is down the hill, out of Dylan just having to angle the car right, as Mark Morales has not had the best run of luck at all here in this 7th round of the season. But now we look at the lap times. Yep, okay, 1:45.2 plays 1:45.4. So gap is coming down. We've got this plus 2 more laps to go, and Dylan is going to be very, very hard pressed for time. And I think at this moment, this marks the halfway point of this first season in 2026 for the Porsche Owners Club here, Joe. There's still a few more rounds to go here, so he's got to play this. He's got to play the percentages. And if I was him right now, okay, I can't go after Michael, but let's pick up 15 points, because they're going to be very, very valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be difficult for him to get up there. I mean, he could still try and pressure him. He could try and push here to see how much time he can gain and see if he can get a mistake out of Michael, because a lot of other drivers have had little mistakes today. That's not to say that the 127 couldn't have his own, but for how things are going, I agree. I think Dylan maybe should just make sure that he brings home those 15 points here today to try and ensure that he is still in the hunt. Because even if he does catch him, I mean, we keep saying it all the time, passing is a whole nother thing, especially at a track like this. As they're going to come around and get 2 to go as they cross the line. It looks like Dylan has maybe been fractionally quicker, but certainly not a big enough difference in lap time for him to catch up.
The thing is, the first sector, it went the way of Michael. He was 2.5 of a second quicker. Dylan clawed nearly 0.3 back in sector 2 and has lost more time in the final sector. Now, bearing in mind a little bit of an interesting stat here, we've had 2 drivers so far that have picked up 2 wins back to back. Blake Sams rounds 1 and 2, Dylan Scott rounds 4 and 5. And with the way things are going at the moment, Michael Bolton could be the 3rd person this season to do that so far, because he won last time at Adelaide after 2 back-to-back podiums, finishing 3rd respectively on rounds 4 and 5. So that's going to be an interesting bit of thought for everybody else, especially those that he's battling with in the series. Of course, BJ Fulton going to be the one that's going to find himself thinking, okay, I'm going to scratch my head a little bit here, what went wrong, and then get ready for next week.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's been hot and cold with drivers. Like you said, they'll get those 2 races, and then it seems they struggle to perform quite the same way after that. You're right that Dylan Scott 2/10 slower last time around. Let's see if he turns it around this time as they get ready for the white flag. And it's not looking like that'll be the case, because it's 1.4 between them, which is about what they were at the start of this lap. So Bolton either responding, or Dylan Scott just with nothing left in the tank to try and push his way forward and catch him up. Crossing the line, getting the 1-to-go signal, this time by 45.6 for Bolton, 45.2 for Scott. Oh, proving me wrong.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is now, if he'd have kept that pace for a few more laps, then, you know, that quicker pace, I mean, that's 3.5 tenths of a second he's just taken out of him. But still, Michael is able just to get that traction down at the earliest points, and, you know, he's out of everybody in the top 5. I mean, BJ's lacks a little bit of pace tonight, to be completely truthful with you, Joe, but Michael's been razor sharp, and his thought process of, okay, let's see what happens, let's stick behind Jad, and Jad had an unforced error, so it's basically given Michael that opportunity, but he has a little bit of a moment coming through turn 7, but all he needs to do is just bring that car home, as they will very shortly head through into turn 10 for the final time here on lap 24. And Michael Bolton has been pretty much the force that no one wanted to win, but he's going to take it to victory lane here at the Hungaroring for round 7 out of 13.
He has been imperious today. Nobody seems to be able to be as consistent as him, as we talk about the Mr. Consistency from earlier with BJ Fulton. He's only going to get 5th place today. And spare a thought for Jad Duncan, who found himself handing over what could have been a win, because Michael Bolton is the only one that didn't flinch, and that nets him a victory here in Hungary. Dylan Scott does collect those valuable 15 points. Oh, but he's got a black flag for some reason. Oh, I wonder if he went over the track limits there, and that means that he is going to have an end of race time penalty.
Sams throws his best Gymkhana effort down the start-finish straight after him. So yeah, that's going to promote Jad up to P2, and that'll be his 3rd second-place finish of the series. So yeah, I mean, if that's going to be what, an additional 30 seconds or so?
I believe so, yeah. And this is what caused it. Dylan Scott out of the final corner, maybe he thought, if I try that little bit harder, it could get me closer, but that trying too hard meant that he went 1 over the incident limit, and that will be extremely costly. We thought that he was going to collect those 15 points, but now it could be far fewer. I think he could be pushed as far down as 5th place in the end, as we watch Marciniak finish in 7th.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. I mean, what could have been 15 points now turns to 8, and so that's 7 lost, and that's given a bit of a lifeline to Jad Duncan, Blake Sams, and also BJ Fulton. You know, when you consider it, BJ Fulton coming into this round of the series was only 5 points behind Michael Bolton, so he'll be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief after that one.
And with the last car across the line, we can confirm that time in scoring has moved Dylan Scott to 6th place in the end.
Whoa.
Yeah, Michael Bolton will take the win, though. Celebrations for that team, as Jad Duncan finished in P2, bumped up by that late penalty. Blake Sams gets himself onto the podium. It was BJ Fulton who finishes 4th. Dustin Heindel jumps up to 5th, and Dylan Scott dropped to 6th. Christopher Marciniak was in 7th today. John Momeyer was 8th. and Larry Haas ninth. Marc Rondeau rounds out your top 10, first driver a lap down. Mark Morales was in 11th, and then Leiden Rondeau finished in 12th today. Let's have a chat with Michael Bolton, see how he felt about this track and also how he feels about the numbers, because Michael, you are the third driver this season to win back-to-back races. What is going on with these streaks?
Let's go. My favorite person to talk to, Joe Peak. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. You must be doing good too.
Feels good, man. This was such a tough track to just not overheat the tires and be patient. No off tracks. The off tracks were pretty vicious around here, but yeah, it feels good to do a back-to-back podium and a P1 for sure.
And importantly, you seem to have gained quite a few points over Dylan Scott. What would have been a second place, he's been penalized for too many incident points late on. And so you now extend your championship lead even more than before. Does this feel pretty confidence boosting?
Well, I never want to win, you know, in an unfair way, but yeah, no, it feels really good. I'm sorry that Dylan had a last off track there to push him over the limit, but no, I mean, these guys, they race so hard, and I'm looking forward to finishing the season out, and I know it's not going to be easy. It's not over by any means, so these guys bring it every week, so I'm excited.
Were you feeling any of the pressure that he was starting to put on late in the race? We could tell he was trying to catch you, but you seemed to do a good job of keeping that gap consistent between the two of you.
You know, he kind of came out of nowhere. He did what I was not expecting to do. And I thought my pace was good, and I was kind of just trying to put some easy laps in, and next thing you know, he was P3 on my timing screen, and then it went to P2, and I'm like, oh, he's right behind me. So I picked up it a little bit, but noticed that if you start to push it here, the tires really don't like that, and just, you know, I think we kind of had a similar pace at the end, but he's been fast in practice and faster, you know, all week, but I think this track just took some victims, unfortunately, but I'll take the win.
Indeed. Well, congratulations on that victory, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you a few more times this season.
Thank you so much, Joe. Quick shout out to my beautiful wife, Gabby, my friends and family, and GSRC. Thank you guys so much. POC, you guys are awesome. And yeah, you guys have a good one.
Thank you very much. That was our winner, Michael Bolton. Second place was Jad Duncan. I believe Alex has caught up with him.
Yes, indeed. Jad, firstly, a great run at the beginning of the race, but then the moment where you accidentally spun, just talk us through it, because that cost you the opportunity of picking up your first win of the series here at round 7.
Yeah, I lost my concentration. I was too worried about how I was going to lap another car, and I thinking, should I go inside? Should I go outside? Should I ask him on the front straight? And just got out of my rhythm and lost it. Thinking about the wrong thing. Can't believe it. It should have been my race. I had the speed, I think, on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword round here at the Hungaroring. I mean, you know, minimal places to pass, and one wrong move and it can upset the car really, really badly. But still, nevertheless, you've ended up P2 as a result of Dylan trying to chase down Michael for the race lead and going off track out of the final corner. It puts you in P2 for the third time this series. There's still plenty of time left to go, though, because we've still got rounds 8 to 13 left, and there's still an opportunity for you to at least get one win this series.
That's good to hear. I didn't know about Dylan. I didn't hear that part. I will miss the next race. I'll be in Peru, but then I should be for the rest of the season. So hopefully by the end of the season, I can get some wins and catch up with some of these other drivers.
Well, Jad, well done on a second place of the series. We know that the win would have been in your grasp, but before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank in particular?
Oh, I'd like to thank my dad and my wife. They both support me on this, and let me get away with wasting time playing this game, having a lot of fun with some friends.
Brilliant. Well, Jad, thanks for talking to us as always, and we'll see you at round 9 of the series, and we hope you have a safe trip to Peru as well in the meantime.
Thank you. Hope to see you then. Bye.
Last but by no means least, looks like our third place driver on the podium is with Joe Peak. Joe, take it away with Blake Sams.
Absolutely, the number 4, maybe getting a bit of a surprise podium on this one. Blake, we just heard Jad mentioning that mistakes here were costly. Were you kind of focusing on trying to keep those at bay? Because certainly seemed to help you today.
Yeah, very much. I got to give props to Jad and Michael. If it wasn't for those two really running a clean race in front of me, giving me a tow, I wouldn't have been up in the position that I was in to hold off BJ coming out of the pits. Those two guys were driving phenomenally, and if it wasn't for the bit of draft and the kind of line guide, a bit of instruction that they were giving me throughout the race, I wouldn't have been there.
Well, that is fantastic. I love the sportsmanship in this group that you guys often display. We were also telling Michael Bolton that there's been a bit of a weird stat where every winner has won twice so far, barring one, and then they don't win again. Where do you think you could turn that around? Is there a race coming up that you see that maybe you could put yourself back on the top step?
I'm going to miss the next race. I've got some work to do, but I'm really looking forward to the Nürburgring. I feel really strong there, feel really consistent, and if it's not going to be there, maybe Watkins.
All right, we'll watch out for those. Regardless, congratulations for a top 3.
Thank you very much.
That was Blake Sams finishing 3rd today in the number 4. And that, I believe, is going to wrap us up. But we want to give a quick mention of our sponsors before we go. Porsche, there is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun Wealth, your retirement wingman. Contact them today for a complimentary financial review at TopGunWM.com. That's TopGunWM.com. Thanks to the team today, Alex, Daniel, and Doug. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. And the next race is going to be another classic. A lot more long straights, though. Road America, Monday, April 20th at 11 p.m. Eastern. We have more racing coming up after this, though, and make sure to tune into the channel so you don't miss out on that, including the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup North America, also going to Road America. Be sure to check out all of our other broadcasts listed here, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.